It certainly is being recorded, and I have everybody's nominal permission to, yeah. I mean, that's policy, but I think it's a good thing that everybody remembers the policy. And secondly, the where we are in System Dynamics 101, this is MBA 645, first section this semester. This thing called the business canvas is something that would be good to look at pretty quickly. This is the Wikipedia on it, but it's basically what we call an ontology, a business ontology, meaning it has all of the entities you need and their connections to basically formulate a business plan. Uh, Everything from key partners, interfacing with key activities and key resources, which create something of the value proposition, but you have to really work the value proposition from the other side, customer segments back to customer relationships and channels, and then put the two together to get the value proposition. What is the unmet demand? Um, how are you going to resource it in a sustainable way? Now, if you're a pure hedge fund manager, sustainability means pure profitability for your investors. And that is a subset of sustainability, financial sustainability. We don't want anybody to go insolvent. Um, and underlying this are the ways in which the value is captured, inputs, outputs, in terms of monetized inputs, monetized outputs. It's very interesting. When I was working at the National Institutes for Health, we built something like this um, with Suzanne Service. I wonder if I don't think she's around anymore. She used to be the SES in charge of management assessment for the NIH. And Suzanne and I and another person, I can't remember his name though, because he retired midway in our project. Um, at 59 and a half years old. Larry, that means something, right?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It certainly does. Um, where we try to compute a return on the taxpayer investment. And the return was calculated in years of extended life, which we could actuarially verify. That was the challenge to it. Can we do an actuarial valuation of that and say, yeah, that's now reasonable? That was the reasonableness. So we actually use this structure to compute that return on with all the cost of all the institutes, with all of the downstream use of um, the knowledge that was generated by the institutes uh, in industry and the rest, not just life sciences, but the rest of the healthcare industry, uh, with all of these pieces in it, channels, fascinating, the channels piece, but it forces you to ask all of the questions. And we did that agency, and it worked quite well. We did it for another agency, which dealt with state and local um, enforcement of um, interstate child payments. So it again, it everybody said, "Oh, this won't work." So, yeah, this is something that came out of a pure business. But then we said, "Well, the same thing, different. It's the same shape. This is a shape, a design. The same shape applies to a not-for-profit or an NGO. Just have to think of it that way." And then the other people that picked up on this was Médecins Sans Frontières, the Doctors Without Borders people, and they picked up on it through the UN because we did work at the UN that was similar to this. As they were trying to figure out what the heck was going on in southern Sudan. That was our remit. So we built this to try to understand that. and it was very, very helpful, and a bit contentious, by the way, which means we probably did our job. So that's the business canvas. So get yourself a little bit. This to me is strategic management, by the way. I don't have a degree in strategic management, except as what my dad would call the College of Hard Knocks, which is actually doing strategy with people who are strategists at Shell and BP and the UN and other places. These are marvelous teachers. Very, very, see, everybody has to your PhD work and so on. And there's the ontology piece. So representation, a picture, if you will. So this is something to begin to align yourself with. There is a book. Oh my gosh. And this book, I would require all of my folks who work for me at Deloitte and other places to purchase this book. And if they didn't have it, I'd buy it for them. Depended how we did that. And I'm trying to think of where it is. It might be it's Austin Walder wrote it. This is it. This is a very, very good website to check out. All these people use this. Yeah, where's the book though, guy? Come on. Anyways, it's online somewhere. Probably a product. Okay. Anyways, innovation. There we go. Strategizer. We knew he was going down this way. All right. So there was that. And there we go back here. And one of the things, again, I mentioned the NIH. Hedge funds easy compared to this. And so I wanted to shake things up a bit to get us out of the pure stock market approach to life and look at operations producing value financed in a sustainable way. It's kind of the way I look at this. And so one way to get us out of the what I think is a rut, and the rut is very interesting. All you're thinking is about monetizing. The only reason why you do something is you get something back return in your bank account. I hope it's more than that for folks. The true value of something is can you sustain your franchise over time in a competitive space? That's a tougher problem. Keep people interested in what you're producing and services you're providing. The Benefits Corporation, the B Corp, is something. Oh, they fixed this up very nicely. And yeah, everybody has to donate stuff, right? Read a little bit about the mission here. And this is about a bit of the triple, the triple canopy, the triple bottom line. People, planet, and profit, all of which are important to sustain anything. And I think we got that figured out. A lot of partners here, a lot of ideas here. The one I profit from every day is this, our studio, which is owned by Posit, which is a B Corp. And the wealth-based company, yes, there's a place for all of these different types of configurations of organizations. So let's see anything about B Corp. So lots of aspects. Large enterprise businesses is a very interesting one. We call these things transnational for other reasons. As you go through, and PDFs and things like that, to be able to get your arms around that kind of a company. And it's my NIH story fundamentally, and I have DoD stories, and I've got Department of Energy stories as well, very, very similar. And I also have a great story out of the great state of Utah, where we did this with a bipartisan commission. Fantastic work, but all using this approach. And simple news and updates. Let's see, was there anything else here? Yeah, we're doing Let It Blossom, Let It Grow. Eric Clapton wise here, with some finance in it. And I just wanted to walk through a little bit of that if there's if that's all right with you. But I've got to bring it up here. Okay. The basics. Now you probably see that I modify this from time to time. Weekly I modify this. I get an itch and I got to scratch it, so it gets scratched, and then you get more stuff in here. An asymmetric Laplace distribution. Am I crazy or what? Yeah, this is a business analytics course, so there's some technical jargon. And this cat, yeah, I know. You're all right. He has to make his presence known.
Or is he upset that everything is not where it used to be?
Oh, it's definitely that, because there's a game we used to play of little tiles that we move around, um, eight tiles, and there's one tile missing, so you had to try to get it all in order again. And this cat's going nuts. But it makes, he's an old cat. He's acting like a young cat now, so I think it's a good thing. Probably annoying, that's all. So that's it. So the invasion sigmoids. This is exactly the same model we use to model epidemics, by the way. Exactly the same mathematical model. And I have friends who did this for Ireland, and I use their work in the next course because they came up with a process that, their numbers are just too close to reality. We don't do R squareds anymore. If you're taking exams, you have to do them, like CFA or CPA. R squares are incredibly misleading, as are significance tests and hypothesis testing. I'm saying this to the world now. Incredibly misleading, especially since they're inadmissible in most models. Most models are combinations of lots of different assumptions, and those assumptions have the equivalent of black holes in them, places where the assumptions do not hold, and they incredibly influence inference. So we're going to, we use different things here, especially with things like sigmoids. The sigmoid is a S curve, and we have the innovation MDL, which let's look at that. There we go. Where we have partners and IP sharing. We have revenue. We're getting to the business. There's a cost rate here. There's no cost model in this. New product development multiple, NPD. Cost rate. If there was a cost model, that might be really interesting. There's an adopters model up here, which is the simplest model. I mean, you could just stay here forever, where you have a potential market, an initial market. You could have a market that grows as well in this, which is interesting. And purchases is the flow from potential market to adopters. It takes time to make a purchase. Purchases are popular or not. You can put whatever intermediary there is inside of this. but it's all driven by this ratio of adopters to potential market. And I'm just using a model. This is the old word of mouth model as well. This model is kind of like the basic model of innovation. Uh, in a lot of areas, the next piece down here, open innovation, takes could take that adopter rate and put it in here. But I wanted to focus here on key partners and IP sharing as part of this, as an example. And we have a very interesting one coming up, which I think is going to be a very interesting play with U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel, which was announced yesterday in the Oval Office. A very, very interesting uh, joint joint venture, which we started this whole course out with. Uh, to me, that's strategy. That's playing strategy back and forth, where you have key partners put together and they share their knowledge. But that's not so easy. That's the hard part of the bargain there. How do you do that? Um, and then what is the value proposition associated with this? You got to. This one's a little bit harder to swallow. What is a value proposition? How does revenue feed it? There's a cost here to new product development. There's a cost rate here for the total cost. There's a success rate measured only apparently in revenue. I think there could be other aspects to the success rate. Uh, Access to markets is a success rate, for example. Um, so again, this to me is an expanded way of looking at what I think is the case for just about every organization on the planet is ultimately a public-private partnership or a partnership that kind of looks a little bit like this. Um, even the local store is a public-private partnership with the city. They have to pay taxes at least, and and they have building inspections, and there's a partnership there. It's kind of interesting. They can't do whatever they want to do. Um, Public utilities are certainly public-private partnerships. The investor-owned utilities, um, uh, firms that act unregulated, like there's a side of the banking industry that is less regulated than another side, always have been. Used to call them non-bank banks. The partnership is a lot looser, and the other side, banks, non-bank banks now are probably hedge funds and private equity organizations. They're given a bit more free reign, but it's still they're the free reign they're given is still in the service of innovation. Supposedly, that's the right idea, um, and it's allowed by jurisdictions. It's allowed by um, you know the um, the community, the community represented by the government. That's getting the idea. So to me, that's the ultimate strategic model, and the rest of it is cost rate and value proposition, and revenue here is the big driver here for new product development. Costs are in here, but if you were to take this model um, and I did not specify exactly what value proposition meant here. Go to the business canvas and look at that. That's an exercise. Okay, that's an exercise because the key partners feed increases to the value proposition, and there's a join rate, whether or not partners join or not. So this is trying to get the interrelationships among these ontological entities, as uh, otherwise known as entities, accumulators,
So
mathematical.
out of curiosity,
Yeah.
I'm seeing alpha and theta and beta and gamma. What what are we talking about with these? with these terms here?
Let's look at their equations, because that'll help a little bit. Alpha will be a parameter called 0.8. So 80%, and then the join rate, just for example, will be 80% of whatever is in IP sharing. Okay, how much of the IP is being shared? Okay, so these would operationally not be easy things to quantify. So we're kind of raising ourselves up above that just to get the concept and quantify that, quantize it really. So 80% of the IP sharing in this case is the input to key partners. So you might think of IP sharing as technology being shared. In the case of this proposed deal structure, which the paper that deal would be unbelievable, between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel. Nippon Steel is probably one of the leaders in, although Mittal Arcelor, which is the other one, will have some words about this. They're going like, "How dare you say this?" Nippon Steel is probably one of the most innovative steel producer on the planet. They have a very strong relationship with key inputs to that technological process. Rio Tinto, for example, or from Australia, among other places, plus all of the alloys needed in the metallurgy to make a super strong steel that is a lot lighter, not titanium lighter, but a lot lighter, and more malleable. So you could roll it to very small levels, and they're actually thinking of rolling it to nanometer levels. Fascinating stuff, but very important in a lot of high technology applications. So, how much of that IP are you sharing? Are you sharing massive amounts of it? Now, how do you measure the massive amount? Well, that's a question here. We're prescinding from that question and saying, if you're sharing a lot of it, it's 80. If you're not sharing much of it, it's 20%. That's what alpha means. So that's the way to think about it. That'll be the input to whatever's in the key partners. You have two key partners, in minus out. All right, and we have gamma feeding this, which is a delayed fixed. That's an important piece. It's a delay of one time unit for a key partner to come in. Okay. There's a out rate. There's a fail rate. Key partners leave, and we have a fail rate, which is influenced by beta. So the beta, alpha, and alpha, beta, gamma, in the abecedary of somebody learning Greek, the alpha, beta, gamma are like adjectives, moderating join, fail rate, and in. They're just join rates. Theta is the next one after that. Same idea. It's just a way to do that. We have a success rate here. Sorry about the arrows. This is a fairly complicated mess of things, right? It's almost a can of worms. But interesting. Open innovation. The adopters model is a little bit easier to deal with. There we go. Where we have potential market amortizes, depletes, depreciates. Okay, that's that kind of a process here. And adopters appreciate, but all of this in the middle halts the appreciation of adopters. So you have a limit to success here. This is the archetype limit to success. But this potential market depreciating is exactly the same process as your principal balance of your mortgage loan declines over the life of the mortgage. It's exactly the same process. And that's what I was a little bit trying to show um, in the video, where we take a bit of time out to look at something financial, because it's kind of like a basic model of depreciation. And if you look at this, we start out with an initial potential market, and it declines by, so I mean, if this is 100 and purchases is 10, then it swings back to being 90 on the next time uh, frame. And the time frame after that, if it declines by 10 each time, it just starts dropping, and pretty soon you don't have any more potential market. So the question then for the marketer is, how do I create more potential market? Okay. Adopters, same idea, but they're on the positive side of purchases. We start with nobody, and every purchase becomes an adoption. It's actually adoptions more than anything else. How many iPhones can you possibly sell? This is the big thing down here, though. This ratio of adopters to potential markets directly feeds, is the input to this popularity lookup table. Popularity lookup. So it's the output of this lookup function. And this is the lookup function. How did I come up with this? I show you how I did it, I think, in the video. Did I show you how to do it? I think I did. Yeah. I built the curve graphically in the video, where it's an ordered pair. In the brackets is the range of ordered pairs in this lookup table. And we see we have 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.35, 0.75. And corresponding to each of these, we have a level of popularity growing exponentially here. Just notice that. Till you get to the last one. Okay. So if I was to build a lookup table, let's see if I can still do that these days. Where's the lookup table here? Lookup tool. Call it the demo. And I can put in my own lookup here. Okay. Now, where there was a way to do this, and I can't remember how to do it now. I haven't done it like in a little while. I probably have to look up how to do the lookup. But there's a way to create this where oops. Sorry for the parsing. Suppose I just want to do a lookup of something that goes from 0 to 1 on the x-axis and 0 to 1 on the y-axis. That's what I'm doing here with the bracket. Okay, and now what this will do is it'll interpolate anything in between any of the points on this. As graph. There we go. I think I can do this as a graph. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I'm sorry. So we have the x-axis going from 0 to 10 here and 0 to 10 in this demo. Always put something there. And this might be not popularity. Adoption ratio. And that's the ratio of adopters to potential market. And on this one, okay. And on this one, we put in level of popularity. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10. So if the adoption ratio is whatever. Now, the adoption ratio, I'm going to need to make like from 0 to 1. 1 to 10 is good, but then I have to scale it. I need to make this scaled. And I'm not sure how to do this. Show the table. There we go. That's the way to do it. Bounds of 0, 1, bounds of 0, and I'm forcing this to be a ratio in which adopters are less than or equal to the potential market. In other words, you can't have more adopters than you have potential market. Okay, that's the idea there. So that works, and you see that fits very nicely there. Why is that coming up with a trash can? Oh, no. There we go. This used to go up like this, and I could make a... Oh, no. No. Go back to the table and go back to this as I fumble around. Again, I haven't done this in a bit, obviously. Okay, back to that. So if I have an input of 0, the output is 0. If I have an input of 0.1, the output is, let's say, 0.02. I'm making this up. Now, the other thing is, on a tabletop, I would get somebody who was a lot. So look what happened. You made a little thing there, and I'm wondering if I can just pull this up. See, I can play with this a little bit. And you see what happens. And if I make this like 0.4, let's make that 0.5 popularity. And if I make this 0.1, 8. Let's make that 0.75. There we go. And I'm making a decreasing popularity to adoption ratio. And if I make that, say, 0.95, let's make that, as the adoption ratio grows, let's put in an odd sort of thing, 0.6. Why? Because I felt like it. That's kind of why. And if I have 100%, adoption, I'm going to bound it by that 0.6. Okay. There we go. That's my, that could be my new popularity picture. And that's the demo. So just seeing how that was constructed, hopefully, see, this is what it looks like from what we just entered. Very easy to parse if you just want to throw it in that way. But I think the graph is good if you're going to be using it in front of other people, where you get kind of a consensus around the table of where the popularity is, or you have 3 different views of it. That's another way to do this. 3 different scenarios. Very helpful, I have found, in places where things are not easily, shall we say, quantifiable. There we go. That was the one we had here with this. Now, can I play with this? I sure can. You can do this, for example. Does this look a little bit more like your reality? Suppose this is your reality. And anything beyond this number of 0.68 would I think interpolate just to 0.4. I think that's how that would work. But again, you can bend this, make that more convex, and make this, oops, sorry about that. And make this more concave. Much more concave. Convex, concave, very important. Okay, that's the new graph that was just created. So play with it. Play with it. And again, this is a very, people will call this squishy and so on. Life's squishy, excuse me, especially when we have human behavior involved. We have classical logic doesn't work very well here. The logic you might have learned in high school with truth tables and so on. One of the reasons for that is this kind of mess. You have, it's more like quantum logic. You have a kind of an entanglement between these two that it just gets a little messy here. So a little bit different logic obtains in understanding the relationship between potential market and adopters. And then the other piece is, how do you influence popularity? Given that this is the popularity lookup, can you influence it? Are there other things you can pull in here to influence popularity? It's called advertising usually, right? So a little bit of a demo here. And I just want to come back to here. This article, which I hope you get a chance to look at, the Journal of Open Innovation. I just want to point out where these folks are coming from. This is work being done in Indonesia. Okay. Indonesia, all Indonesia. So they're working to figure out, okay, it's COVID, yes. Digital transformation is a key area in how they're trying to grow their country. It's a national priority, actually. And it's very interesting because we intersected with that national priority in with Boeing working in the unclassified area, of course, putting a satellite into low Earth orbit. It was relatively stationary, but it had a component which helped to stabilize it and keep it in that orbit, because it's a low Earth orbit. You're closer to gravitational influences, among other things. I don't think you have Lenz's law there, Larry. Thanks for that last week, by the way. I'd forgotten all about Lenz because I used to work in DC more than AC stuff. Rotating machinery, very important, Lenz's law. So is right hand or left hand rotations, right? Right hand usually, right? That's what I use. Physics, yeah, can't get enough of it. Chess Pro. Yep.
You can't forget all the hand signals.
No, or all the hand signals.
Shoot the field, direction.
That's right. Yeah, well, direction, the two fields, the base field and the direction is torque.
Right.
Yeah. Maxwell's equations. There we go. Vector product, not normal multiplication, but vector multiplication. Yeah. Complex numbers. I thought this article was a very good description, and this uses the business canvas of what open innovation is, which is a very, very strong aspect. And in this Boeing example, it was initially not open because the government of Indonesia did not allow the base technology to be transferred to the United States. So you basically had a single source supplier risk. And they eventually worked out a way in which to protect the value of the technology within the Indonesian jurisdiction, and yet reduce the amount of single source risk to Boeing should they not been able to get the part. Okay, so very interesting way of thinking about it. And again, we use these models to help people understand implications of the interactions of the two key partners and their sharing of their IP. But that was a critical component just to keep this thing in low Earth orbit. It was in low Earth orbit because of all the space debris. That was the other reason. I'm trying to remember that. So planning models here, dynamic capabilities and business model innovation, and system dynamics now. You can almost have a whole course just in this stuff right here. Very, very interesting. Different types of companies. So they provide us a typology. They're setting the stage for just about everything that they need to be able to populate this model. And building the model, the actual build itself, the different pieces of what they need, determining factors, the causal loop diagram. This is like my 6-step process. similar, not the same. Okay. Trend analysis. The co-creation experiences. So if you want to learn more about it, this is a really good source, I think. I was happy to, felt lucky to have found it. Here's where I got the key partners and IP sharing pieces. Notice it comes from this sort of success and failure loop. Okay, one loop feeding, the other loop coming out, and so on and so forth. So this is basically the joint venture approach. And this is also where we get the alpha rate, the beta rate. I threw in a theta rate up here to further do something I wanted to do with this. These are the equations of it, and I'm showing you the calculus equations. These are just rates of change, Kp in, Kp out. But these are very similar and join rate and the very simple equations that you would be putting into Vensim. Very similar again to the equations you would see in an epidemics model. And here's the rest of it, where you have value proposition and revenue. Read this article for what they think value proposition is. This is just the math of it. So it's a very complete specification of the model. No, you do not have to use calculus. And they do some simulations. The other thing that you need, here we go, the IP sharing. This is more of what the epidemic model looks like. The IP sharing acts like infection, the infection process in the epidemic models. Key partner simulation. There's one for different alphas. And here's where the sigmoid comes in, the loss rate simulation. So they go through each of the different pieces, comment on them. But the real value of a model like this is putting it in front of decision makers and their key influencers in the organization and across organizations, and test their responses to different scenarios in these simulations. That is the most useful. And then post innovation, go back and test the validity of this model and with inference, and see how close the model represents what they actually did. And then tweak the model. So now you have a monitoring function. You have a monitoring capability for new innovations or revamping of older previous vintage. You don't like to call it older anymore. Previous vintage innovations. Okay. And that's what this discussion is quite a bit about. So this is a key article to me for any company, any organization to innovate. And here's the ecosystem that they're talking about with some digital startups. We were trying to have this discussion with the leadership of Manhattan University at one point. It didn't go too far. It wasn't this technical, obviously. You can't do it that way. But they were in different mode, more of a crisis mode. But I think this is the sort of thing that I heard that Iona University did and Fordham University did. When the new president Tetlow came into Fordham, they did this kind of an analysis, asking the question, Where are the key innovators? The innovators are probably not in medieval studies, all right? The innovators, however, tended to be in business, and business as it correlated the Gabelli school in their case with their um, main strengths, which were in the financial markets. Gabelli has always been that. And then how can they draw the other resources of the university to those purposes using Jesuit educational norms as their guidance, and using this analysis inside of that. One of the chief Jesuit education norms is think systemically, not just critically, but systemically, and that's always been part of it. I mean, who's going to read 46 articles though? Not me. I read a few of these, uh, and I'm sure they're all very important. But it's a good reading list for a course. So I recommend this to you. Here's the collaborative framework that they're creating. It's a pentagonal structure here. It could be a polygonal structure where you have a polygon of many, but it's all of the interactions are the each look at each company is feeding a separate market in this. My question is, are is when you invert this and look at the markets, how they're related to companies, you get an inversion of this graph. It might be very interesting to look at. And that's a hard thing to do, even mathematically. But these markets, I bet, are related. And that was my key question of two of the authors. And they go, we've been just thinking about the same thing. Now, notice they did this in 21. They've been working on this for 3 years by this point. So I just wanted to give a little update on that. And the principle, I just wanted to, I think this was last year's live session. We have a new one coming up from this. I put in some notes, but I also put in this notion of a hermeneutical circle. Again, the logic is different than the vicious circle. And look up the vicious circle as opposed to the virtuous circle. Um, it's a line of reasoning, and hermeneutics means interpretation. Um, and it basically relates to the language that you use and how you use it to picture or describe or represent what you're doing. Here we're looking at relationships among companies, their markets, inputs and outputs, how we feel about a product called popularity, lots of different aspects of it. But what I have found is that a lot of these situations, their languages are what we call isomorphic. They have the same shape all the way around. The archetypes are an example of those same shape situations. But there's a process that you go through and look through the steps of this process. And the exercise for you is to go through these steps formally when you build your model, when you think about your models. You start with a literal, very literal. What does this box mean? What does this arrow mean? What Larry said. What does alpha mean? What is beta? What is gamma? What does theta mean? And then you work up into how they relate to other things. That's the second step. Um, Going away from that to a larger picture of how it relates to flows into and flows out of a stock. Okay, that's the second step. It used to be called allegorical meaning, and then most importantly, it forces you to go back and say, does this make sense? Did that popularity graph we built make any sense in terms of the simulations we produced? And if they do not cohere, if they do not answer the question you were posing, then you go back and figure out where to change the pieces, number one, and the way the pieces fit into the whole. The whole governs what you put in the first place. There's actually, I'm going to start this off with zero. You pose a question. That's where it starts. And if it doesn't cohere in the sense of your model answering the question, what's the point? There's a canon of relevancy. Does it sufficiently answer enough of your question? What does the word enough there mean? Is it just true and false? Not in my world, anyways. You get progress, not perfection. Okay, is the slogan. See, certain CEOs would not like what I just said. This is what I talked about in the video. I just want to make sure that you see that the writing of my writing is even sloppier here, but just to give you my notes. An engineering paper. I also talked about this really odd model. I don't apologize for it too much, but I was thinking of how I was building a commodity price model for something called a rare earth. The 3TN gold rare earth complex, tin, tungsten, and titanium, and then gold. I got kind of a personal vested interest in that over the past few decades. So I was trying to build something of a model of that, and recycling gets involved in that very much so. A lot of we do a lot of investment or asset recovery. This is the other piece that I mentioned, and this is fine. What's in this box down here is financial engineering 101. How do we put together an annuity? How do we measure the present value as something that starts at zero, ends at 5 years from now, monthly payments, and there are monthly increases and decreases in here. And here's the principle that it starts out with. Well, it turns out that it's long, a perpetuity, and short, a delayed start perpetuity. So this minus this equals the top piece. And that is, notice long and short. Anybody in the finance area? Chris, are you with us today? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm here, Professor.
Oh, you are there. Oh, good. My life has been about long and short in the capital markets. So I kind of had to, again, this is a language, a way of portraying something. Here's the system diagram of something that we are mostly, I hope everybody has seen this once in their finance course, where you do an amortization of principal. You have an initial print. This is your mortgage, your mortgage purchase value, net of this is your house purchase value net of the down payment, right? And you look at principal repayments, and you look at interest payments down the way as well. Term, interest rates, the period for payment is usually an annual interest rate divided by the period, 12 months, for example. It feeds a payment function. Okay, it's simple arithmetic actually, but it goes through time, and the simple arithmetic degrades or depreciates or amortizes or depletes or obsolesces the principal. Okay, again, different language, different ways of describing, and thus different interpretations. Sorry, this is a little bit messy up here. That's because I'm using a number 2 pencil and the light shone on it and just reflected off of it. Sorry about that. But basically, here's the long net of the short in present value terms. Okay, long net of the short. Well, it's actually R over P, but not to worry about it. And then the principal repayment is the payment minus any interest on the previous level of principal. Very simple process, but it is the primordial or process of every non-renewable stock. Now, if you add principal to this, now you have renewable stock. I'm thinking resources, for example, in a mine. Okay. If you idle the mine, then it's non-renewable. If you start it back up with a delay, it becomes renewable. And I'm trying to build that into a commodity pricing approach. Again, I'm an economist, and utility maximization doesn't quite cut all the things I need to say about that matter. Anyways, I wanted to make sure you got this out of this course. This is a very important concept. And for those of you who want to be a financial engineer, this is financial engineering, not just Black-Scholes option pricing, which is actually a long and short position as well. We make options using a portfolio of positions. That's really what happens. Here is the process that I would like you to perhaps reinstate yourself with, where we have a 4 causes. This is the interpretive whole that governs what we need to put into the rest of this, all the components. And here we have a key question. The crispier that question is, Jane, our leader at Deloitte, Jane Griffith, crispy questions, very well posed, actionable, high meaning level terms in the question. Each term, each the, each and, each adjective is as measurable as possible. That's what that takes a lot of time to get to if you're doing it right. Or you could look at previous crispy questions and use that as your isomorphic model. Same shape, different words. In this one, we're just looking at what is the impact of growth in our markets. And one way to answer that is look at this limits to success archetype. That's the shape of it. And we're looking at market sizes, and that's the material, adopter characteristics. Perhaps there might be delays in this time. And there's an acceleration and a deceleration of growth implied in this. And on the efficient side to the left, which is feeding all of this, that's why the arrow is trying to do this. And the arrow going out is this is what we want. And then these are the blocks that we need. Management timing. Think about a marketing campaign. And all product development, all product management, all product service offerings have campaigns within them. I mean, how do you organize that? That's where we get this popularity multiplier. Potential market down here. So we go over here and just try to get an understanding of the archetype. We go back and ask, is this archetype going to be able to answer our questions? Does it have the key aspects of movement to answer our questions? And then we build out some ideas about pieces of adoption and timing and what we think acceleration and deacceleration looks like. This is sigmoid here. Here's the inflection point, the point at which the increase shifts to a decrease. It's a cumulative frequency distribution idea. E to the minus t squared over 2. Anyways. And then down here's the popularity matrix. He said there's got to be a way of figuring out how we get this multiplier where we amplify, and then how do we limit it? Here's the limitation: adopter relative to market. As this grows, our popularity increases and may dissipate perhaps. And then we build a system diagram over here. Okay. We could interchange these, do this first and do this second. And then finally, we reflect on, have we collected all the pieces? Have we connected the pieces in the right way? And does it cohere? Does it answer whatever question we have posed with all of the rigmarole underneath of this? Have we answered the question? And what have we not answered? That's the coherence verb. So this is my version of design for innovation, for anything basically. Make your own. But I'm going to ask you to make one of these placemats. Busy CEOs love placemats. If you haven't noticed that yet, you may notice it. Very busy CEOs just want it in one gulp. Probably just want to talk about this. Maybe not this, certainly not this, but make sure these questions are asked and answered. Why? What is it that we're looking at? What's the content? How can we influence it? Those are the key questions. There's not much more than that. There's other aspects of those questions, but they tend to be the 4 key questions. Okay. And we covered all of this. And in week 4, that's the bottom line today. Yep. Share and discuss, definitely. And using the innovation model as 2 views. Run just if you just got through 1, that would be great. And then comment on 2, comment on 3. But the adopter model, at least make good sense of that one. Okay, that's the idea there. Everything else is gravy on top of that. And you can put all of this in comments inside of your uploaded MDL innovation model. No need to make, some people are, I got to take it out of the syllabus, I guess, making PDFs and docs and so on, but PDFs are frozen. That's a good thing. Anyways, any questions as I try to find the little button here? There we are.
Professor.
Larry, Chris, and Michael.
I don't see where to add the comment when uploading the file.
Sure, let's pull one of those up. So that was the demo here. There's a comment tool here. So, and you put a comment here, the editor. Okay, you put a comment there and close it. Let's see how it looks. So you can take this and you can move it. There we go. You could also make the alignment left, clear box, line thickness. Make it, if you make it into a box, hide shadow around the shape. So you can play with it a little bit. There we go. Oops. A little bit easier to read. Okay, you can put a title up here and so on, one and so on. I just wanted to make this a little bit easier for you. That's all. So step one is to go up here in the comment. Well, actually, step one is to do that so that you can edit it. And step two is to do the comment editor and put in it the way you want and then close it. There we go. There's a comment. Does that help?
Yeah, I definitely see it now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got. Let's just make it nice and neat. There are no graphs in this. It might be nice to put a graph or two. Yeah. I didn't run this. Incomplete equation for demo. Why is that? All of these seem to be fine.
No. Yeah.
Oh, that's the one.
Yes.
There we go. You know what we have to do with that?
Trunk it.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Okay, let's see if we can get this to run again. There we go. Oh, I like this. I mentioned something called a asymmetric. See, that's off kilter, asymmetric, off center. Laplace distribution function. This is what that is. Okay. We have names for everything after a while, and they're old names. Potential market is a reverse sigmoid. Adopters are a positive sigmoid. We go up and wow, pretty cool. Very interesting. And this isn't going to do anything. Just going to change the amp on it. Popularity itself goes up and then remains constant. And time to mull over, very important. Obviously, anybody will tell you that. No time at all, negative time. Okay, very small amount of time to mull something over. So it looks like the only two things you have control over here are time to mull over and the initial market you want to capture. That's it. Not much, not many, as we would say, degrees of freedom in this model. And then how would you influence the popularity lookup? That to me is key. I would probably want to have inputs to this. I'd want to have something that modifies this, an extra variable, which may be a multiplier of popularity. And you might have a cost to doing that. So that you should calculate in this innovation process, or literally an as if return. So each adopter, so what did GAP do? GAP, when it did its planning, GAP, the retailer, GAP.
The clothing company.
Yeah, the clothing company. There we go. They worked out how many customers do we have of different groups, of course. What is the range of they want to know the distribution and the median transaction per customer class. Very simple. That's where they started, and then they worked out and decomposed transaction per customer into various aspects of that process of, like, how long does it take, how much support does each transaction require, and that's an operational question. How many visits per customer is a really important metric that feeds the most important thing to them for revenue growth, which is transaction per customer. How do we get more customers in the door? Well, Mr. Gap, literally they would go around the table. Well, it isn't just how many customers get it. It is a process for getting customers in the door. Yes, how many visits? They were Target, when we worked with them originally, they weren't even counting the number of people who actually entered or left the store. Now that there's a security issue there as well, but from how many customers are you trying to get into the store? You want as many customers to get into that store as possible. Thus, ratio of customer visits relative to square footage. And the layout, the planogram, is the influencer. A planogram is the way they arrange the merchandise on the shelf. How they put different colors and patterns of dress wear in a cascading way, facing one another to get the visitor to be interested, emotionally interested, at least. The shelves themselves are advertising. In grocery stores, you're a wholesaler. You want to put your product on the shelf. You want to have it at eye level, so somebody sees it, not on the bottom. Where I'm always looking for stuff on the bottom, because that's the only stuff I need to buy is the stuff on the bottom shelf. They're paying nothing for that shelf space, very little, anyways. But the wholesaler that wants their product to be known to customers wants it on a shelf at approximately eye level. Thus, Toys R Us, where the children are, that eye level was a lot lower than the higher level that the adults saw. And they were trying to influence the adult in one way and the children in another way. So physical configuration mattered. All of this influenced the turnover of a visit into a sale. That was, how fast can we do that? That velocity. So that's retail. Similar metrics run a chemical refractory. Okay, it's fascinating that different languages have the same shapes. Same here. So that would be something I would say would be a really cool recommendation on this one, is how do we influence popularity and what does it cost? Okay. That was fun. Okay. And we got this. I mean, you can make the graphs if you want, but actually these can give you all the detail you need. Remember, shape and position tend to give you everything you need. Don't need precision here. Okay, the big thing here is that's the big thing. More time obviously shifts high purchase points way to the right. Takes time. And thus our adoption is slowed down. No kidding. That's a coherence question, though. Why do adopters slow down? Well, it's very simple. Time to mull over in our model. Are there other factors that slow that down? We might want to add other factors, recommendations.
So, Professor, so if we were to look at time to mull over, and we were to add a variable of advertising and marketing,
Yep.
right? We could argue that more advertising and more marketing would then shrink that time to mull over.
In other
Thus,
words, exactly. Endogenize this variable. Exactly.
right, which would then thus increase the popularity and then increase the time to purchase, which would then shorten the time for maximum adopters.
So you'll probably have. I think think of Samsung or Google or anybody else that puts a personal handheld computer in your hand. Think of them. They're thinking about this all the time. This particular variable, and
Right.
they know how how many rupees, dollars, won, etc. it takes to reduce it by a visit time to mull over by 1 hour, let's say, or 1 minute, even in some cases. There's a cost. How much more influence dollars do you need to press on your customer base to move that thing down so you have faster adoption? So we can get on to our next product and sell that to them later on. $1,000 machine, $800 machines now, which is a whole other thing inside of this. So I would have a table over here feeding time to this, and maybe something feeding that table so I could use a slide bar on it. Sound interesting? Or use some sort of curve, build a curve in an equation to feed time to mull over. Popularity is the only other one to me that would be something I would want to play with. Time mull over popularity. It's interesting. The advertising dollar could influence popularity, could also influence time to mull over. Those are two different pieces. One is time based. Popularity would be the space as opposed to time. Um, how much brain space I would want to have associated with this product in my mind. Look at this ratio going up like this. And with this is early adoption. I mean, this is the ratio, boom, saturates at this point. I think I would play with this number as well. Yeah, definitely play with that number. Okay. I just love the shape of the curves after a while. But this tick up is really, whoop. That's a fascinating phenomenon to me right there. And it's because that number, I think it's 2000, is probably close on whatever that number is at that bend, which is the same as it at right there, 200. It's right about here, and it's right about here. That's where that number comes from. Okay. Cool. Interpretation. I'm always bouncing back and forth in that hermeneutical circle. I remember some CEO at a major payments company saying, enough. And then one of his direct reports say, no, we got to reflect on that, because think about this, Clement. I'll call him Clement for the moment. Clement, that think about this. And he goes, oh, right. That's why I pay you the big bucks, Ray. It's the hermeneutical circle. It's a reflection survey. You have to reflect. And always ask what if and why not. That's the piece there. There's going to be more on that next week and the week after. There we go. So, all sorts of fun as per usual. Let's design helicopters next. Now, they use very similar equations, by the way, to design helicopters with it's a dihedral angle. Now, how do I know about that? Because I worked on a project where they put sensors in the rotor blades themselves, which then fed Navier-Stokes equations for flow of air underneath to create lift and modify lift. I think helicopters are probably the coolest machines around because of what they seemingly can do. And vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, how that operates. Again, all of these ratios, and it's like potential market adopters. One thing works with another, one thing declines, the other thing increases with different parameters going through them. The AI piece, interesting. So I had an interesting chat with when you are with IBM for a long time and it's time to retire, they may call you a grand inventor and hand you I don't know, the gold watch or something. I'm not sure what, but one of these folks is somebody I worked with for years, Ken Fordyce. Worked out of IBM Kingston, and I think I mentioned this to you, Larry, about the fabs that they're creating. Yeah, I was talking with my son about exactly the same thing because in his role at Booz Allen, they're working on being a bridge between the IBMs, the AMDs, and the Intels to create reactive, it's like reactive control surfaces on aircraft, much more reactive approaches to things that move very, very quickly in let's say a battle space or something like that, but also in a market space. It's the same idea, pattern recognition and so on. But Ken was saying, says, Bill, remember we were doing that at the fabs in the late 80s. And his buddy Jerry Sullivan, we were talking about his buddy Jerry Sullivan, who I think not doing so well, so that's why we were talking about him. They built a system to keep the foundry moving because human beings couldn't quite catch all of the particular details and react quickly enough before it basically halted. It stalled, went into a stall state. And we're talking about things with gold in it and templates with silicon substrate and so on and so forth. Had to keep moving at a temperature in order to keep producing. Um, and he said that was AI. We use exactly the same tensor matrices. Here's the pattern, the weights, and then we apply the pattern to a new piece of data coming in and interpreting it with the previous weights in the pattern. So it hit the pattern, hit 5 points on the pattern, and these are the relative sizes of those points, and this is what you get next. Okay, that's what the AI does with language or with anything. The language here were sensor readings, and so it was funny because they built a whole programming language to do that. It was called APL2. And that has not gone away. There's somebody, the guy who built that. It was all built at Syracuse University, interestingly, which was the home of one of the original homes of parallel computing. One of the guys who built that has a new company. His name is Jim Brown. I can't remember the name of the new company, which is putting all that stuff on steroids, basically. Again, attempting to take a process which might take $1 billion to produce the weights for a chat GPT, for example, and reduce that down to something usable. So that's on the horizon. And it's basically an AI building a new AI. That's the point I want to make. Because that's what we did at IBM. One AI, literally, we programmed it to produce a new AI and actually write new code to produce that new AI. So now we have the technology to do that much, much more quickly with cloud technology, load management that we never had before, and data centers powered by 774 megawatts of capacity in Northern Virginia, for example. So watch out for BlackRock. BlackRock is purchasing. It's a private equity firm. Watch their movements. They're kind of like key to this. There's a few others, and they're building a fusion facility in north of Richmond. Yes,
I would
fusion.
be paying more attention to what's going on in Arizona.
Oh yeah, yeah. What's happening in Arizona?
Over 7,000 acres of farmland
Yeah.
will be bought just outside of Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
And the top three property insurance companies have all canceled fire insurance in the state of Arizona.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, they did that just this week.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So the West, that's pretty much the Southwest. They've got to be canceling all the way around there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fire insurance, very interesting. That's that's uh, the perfect storm effects of fire insurance is linked to uh, mortgage values and real estate values directly. Um, so if you're uh, this happened to Prudential, where they had mortgage defaults, credit risk, and uh, property and liability, property and casualty liability insurance, all balled up into one package. It almost wiped them out uh, in the 80s, and they learned from that. Took them a long time to figure it all out, how to unravel it. But all of the insurance is connected. Life probably not. I don't know about life. I think that's very disconnected still. But anything with oh my God, marine insurance is so different now than when I grew up in it. So different because of the way port facilities are run and the way boat mortgages are worked and the mortgages on tankers and so on. how that works and how it's financed. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Very good. So, what did they buy that much land for?
There's discussions on wanting to create America's first 15-minute smart city.
Oh, wow, cool. You got to build it from scratch.
Bingo.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be totally hackable. I don't know if I want to live there. I want to be air gapped, pretty much. I don't want my refrigerator coming at me in the middle of the night, type of thing. Yeah, I got refrigerator knows how to manufacture parts to build something to come at me with my mechanical dog, right? My robotic dog. Anyways, the cats are interesting enough. Yeah, that and then the smart energy methodologies that have come about, smart trading. There's district. It's effectively synthetic district uh, uh, heating, hot water, and electricity in a small enclave in Brooklyn right now, and it's run with the same distributed data technology that's in Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, but they're also using the original structure of Con Ed's high pressure, high temp steam in localized heat exchangers to make the building heat and the building's hot water.
Yeah,
Um,
back to
Chris,
district over facility by facility. Yeah.
right. So Chris and Michael, if you guys aren't aware, New York City was designed to have no independent buildings heating or domestic hot water system. What Lower Manhattan has all the way up through Midtown and Brooklyn has it going from the Brooklyn Bridge out to essentially Prospect Park.
Yeah, yeah.
So from the Brooklyn Bridge up to the Manhattan Bridge and over to Prospect Park, what you have is 3 or 4 high temp, high pressure steam generators. So if you've ever been through Manhattan in the wintertime and you see these billowing towers of steam coming up through the root through the ground, those are steam leaks. Those are unreachable, unisolable steam leaks.
Yes, and every now and then they blow a gasket and throw some manhole covers up several feet into the air,
Right.
like on Lexington Avenue.
So, fun fact, I actually work with Con Ed as one of their chiefs of construction and capital programs. And there are whispers that, the steam plants are being decommissioned by 2035.
Michael, hold it 1 minute. Is this publicly available information?
Uh,
Yes.
yes, this is information that is available. This
Okay,
is
because we're
that's
being recorded. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah. No, to Michael's point, Bill, the DOB is actually the one that put that information out,
Oh, good.
separate from Con Ed putting it out. But yes, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, no, I'm just bringing up the fact that this is a planned process that's going on. That's why all these new transmission power lines are being put in underground. They're building these new power lines to help mitigate and decentralize the steam plants that are available today in Lower Manhattan and Lower Brooklyn. So, that's just something to keep your eye on as well as time progresses.
Yeah.
What are they going to do about, like, you have the Natural History Museum, which doesn't have an ability to bring in a separate heating system, or you have the first, 87 floors of the Empire State Building that
too early.
don't have an ability to bring in a separate heating system because they
Well,
never built.
I'm not sure about the Natural History Museum, but the Empire State Building does have its own substation built within on one floor of the Empire State Building. There's one floor dedicated to Con Ed personnel generating these transmission lines through that building. So that is also public information. It's available out there, but
Oh,
um,
so they're gonna force everybody to go to electric.
Yeah.
electric gas.
Okay. Oh, that's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Well, as for how far or how long that's going to take, I can't speak on how long or how far, but
Oh,
it is
it's government,
in their
yeah.
plan.
Yeah. So number two, residual oil. How's that faring these days? Or is that we could be on Bloomberg right now and producing a little report for them. Uh, the there's some talk about heating oil. HO2 is, the contract isn't doing so well. Let's put it that way. In the markets, decommissioning of oil oil-based heating and hot water systems. I'm moving into a place that's still oil, which is kind of interesting. I
No,
haven't seen that in a long time.
there are definitely oil lines still available. There's definitely maintained projects going on throughout Brooklyn, especially where these oil systems are still being maintained. They're putting Belzona over the pipes, re-enhancing the pipes to actually maintain it. So I don't think that's going to be disturbed for the near future.
I mean, is it on Route 78 coming into Manhattan through Holland Tunnel? There's a huge sign that says, "Forget about gas. Remember, oil doesn't blow up," or something to that effect.
I have seen that sign before while driving it.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, the safety of all this. We're our pricing on natural gas comes out of Henry Hub, and everything is basis to Henry Hub, including Canadian basis. There's a basis point there in Chicago. I can't remember. It's out of Cantera, I think. And we also have a basis to. It lands in Ogdensburg, near Ogdensburg. I can't remember the name. Begins with a W. Waddington. That's where it is. Where Canadian natural gas comes in that way. Um, Negative pricing of oil out of the Waha hub. Waha is still with Permian Basin. Crude is still negative down there because it's hitting delays. They're producing more than they're producing a lot more than they can ship on pipes. There's some talk of the Buckeye pipe, which is the main pipe feeding into the New York area, being not decommissioned but recommissioned and expanded. Um, and these pipes can all pack multiple products in them, which is really, really helpful. What is the has anybody heard anything about the status of the sub harbor movement of goods and materials from the mainland to from roughly Elizabeth, I think, is what they were planning, right? They're going to build two new tubes and pipelines underneath the harbor. That's another aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about anything about coming in from Elizabeth. But it's it's going to be interesting to say the least. The next
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah. I think in Linden, New Jersey is the home of the variable frequency transformer, and they're going to be expanding that, which will provide some little better load relief
Mhm.
from PJM into New York Pool, where we are. And Ridge Hill has just grown by leaps. Michael, you must know all about Ridge Hill. I mean, that's just grown by leaps and bounds over the past several years.
Yes, and they plan on continuing it. The little substation that's on the top of the hill over there. There's multiple projects, multiple developments going out for all the lines that they're trying to put there.
My firm that I was in after Deloitte was Charles River Associates, and we were commissioned by the Economic Development Corporation to do the transmission study. We used GE maps and production cost approaches to do that, and we came up with how much transmission is going to be needed over a 30-year period. I think we did that in like 20, oh gosh, 2009. I think we did that when we were at EDC, and that looks like all of that is blossoming now. Absolutely, especially as we go to more electric and less other sources. Yeah, kind of interesting. Wheeling down from, and I think we have a stronger New England pool connection as well that we didn't have before from Long Island. Something going on between Long Island under the Sound. I was looking at that the other day to connect a little bit more tightly. And then we have the infrastructure below 37.5 kV lines, distribution lines in the city, my part of the city, anyways, the Bronx, which are very, very brittle and have been, and Queens are the same way. We were all hoping that some of this would go underground, but it hasn't. I don't think it'd be like $1 trillion price tag to do that. So distribution is the key here. It ends up always being the key: transmission and distribution. We're going to have to start replacing pylons along the Mohawk.
So I'm
Rotting out.
actually waiting to see how well they can develop these Connex box unmanned mini stations.
Yep,
Because if they could do that, they could get rid of all the transmission lines,
a lot of them.
all of
Yeah,
our power in transmission.
yeah. Pelletized uranium uranium fuel pods. They're like 80 megs, and they're not big,
They're not big. They would fit inside a Connex box.
and they cannot melt down,
Correct.
unlike 9 Mile.
Correct.
Yeah,
And you would be able to essentially, like if you were to drive over to St. Francis de Chantal,
yeah,
you could take what Connex box going to fit in 3 parking spaces,
maybe, yeah,
and you would be able to take care of everything in Throgs Neck with the exception of the slum housing over by the cemetery. And if you were to put another Connex box over there, you could take care of that entire quadrant.
right. And then it gets, and then you just reduce it to a distribution problem, not a
Correct.
transmission to substation, but
It wouldn't
a
be a substation.
distribution. Yeah,
You would
use the
just
same,
transmit right out to that neighborhood.
right.
And
That's it.
you would just, every number of years, you would just bring a new Connex box.
Yeah, it's modular. Whole
Yep,
thing's modular.
absolutely.
Yeah. So uh, uranium mining is an interesting thing to look at internationally and locally, but internationally for us in the United States, it tends to be more Canada where the mines are. We had a mine when my company built the 9 Miles. It was the only utility company uh, in the United States that built their own nuclear. That was Niagara Mohawk, and we built both 9 Miles. and we had reserve uranium reserves. It's more like a warehouse receipt, but we had interests in Canada in 2 mines. I had to visit them. I still glow
Wow.
a little bit, but the production process after that is so much improved now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it used to be it's still a very dangerous operation, but so is making wafers for silicon-based technologies. So, I mean, that's unbelievably dangerous too. But
Oh, and it's also fine. It's damn near fiscally irresponsible.
yeah,
I
pretty much.
mean, if you were to look at the finances of any of these corporations that are making the silicon wafers for microchip manufacturing, it's shocking that they're afloat.
Because
The amount of loss that they have, the
yeah,
amount of error that they have, um, you're talking about such unstable raw materials and getting them to align at an astronomically precise rate and just, I mean, you really need the stars to align in
yeah,
order for
unbelievable. You're right. Yeah,
um and I was talking, I interviewed for one of them, and the amount of rework they have is in excess of 60%.
yikes.
Right. So I mean, Christian, you're in finance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, think about that, right? If if your final product has a rework rate of 60% and you're one of 6 manufacturers in North America that's making a product that all of the fabs need, like you get to basically, set your price.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's called a market maker.
Yeah. Yeah, you're printing money because you're burning money in making the product.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and they're practically sole source now.
Mm-hmm.
These are the foundations of when they build the chip itself. They actually build the template that they then laser fix the circuits on. Uh, yeah, just amazing. And that was what, again, that was going back to my discussion with Ken Fordyce. That was they did not have such supply chain problems because they had was much more vertically integrated at the time. Um, but now it is not vertically integrated. It's the supply chain for the fabs are a bit more disintegrated, less control, but not innovated either. They're doing the market making approach instead of innovating the physical process. They're getting away with it because they can, but I don't know how you finance that sustainably. I'm pretty sure it'd be interesting to get that list and look at how because they're going to be key to everything. I mean, where's Nvidia getting its foundational supplies from? I know there's a problem there. I know that everything is in short supply as we ramp up data centers um, for AI. There's certainly going to be the power problem. There's certainly going to be if it isn't mind mouth, like right, the power plant's right there. It is going to be getting um, uh, inputs to the power plant, that transmission problem, or if it's the power plant's far away, bringing that forward, and that's where this pelletized uh, approach to nuclear might
Yes.
be the an answer or the answer, because
Well, I
that
mean, this question is why they even approach the concept of creating these pellet-sized Connex box unmanned nuke reactors.
Yeah.
Because essentially you got to drop one off in every parking lot of every fab of every
right.
data center, processing center, AI center, and they're just going to be independent. Instead of having a diesel generator as a backup, you're just not going to be connected to the electric grid, and you're just going to be your own independent source.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Got a lot of problems to solve. The more we innovate, the more problems we generate, actually. Kind of interesting.
I feel like we can almost create a flow diagram of that.
That would be fascinating.
The more questions we answer, the more questions we create.
Yep. Yes, exactly. The Quaestio Disputata. That's next week. Oh my God. I can't wait. Well, have we sufficiently cleansed ourselves enough of stuff from last week to move on to next week? Kind of build ourselves into the next round. Okay, it's 12:12. I'm going to ask if we can reconvene next week. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Michael, thank you. Larry and Christian, good conversation. Have a great week.
You too.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Professor. Good
Thank
week.
you very much.